Hello, everyone. Today, I'm very happy to have an expert with us. She does something that I don't fully understand. Perhaps I'll understand after she explains it to us. Right now, we have with us Gauri Gharpure. She is an MBA admission consultant. Let's listen to her. Over to you, Gauri.
Uh, Namaste, Madhurji. Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk. And I have listened to a lot of youth share how they are contributing to the society in numerous different ways through numerous different streams and professions. And it's very informative and very heartening to listen to them through your forum. Now, I feel as a person who has studied communication that communication is key to a lot of things, and it's a binding thread for whatever you want to do and whatever profession you are in. It is a required element of your journey. So I started off my education was undergrad was as a BSc zoology undergrad. Then I moved to Pune to study mass communication and journalism. And after a brief stint with a newspaper, I went to New York to study journalism at Columbia University on a Fulbright grant. So this has been my background, and I have tried to write and be, productive in a variety of niches. And eventually, I found a very good niche that appealed to me a lot, which was MBA Admissions Consulting, because here I was working with young professionals who are very ambitious, who are very clear about their goals, where they want to go in life, and they need some help and some guidance along the way to get to their desired program. And in this, I was able to execute my editing skills, the entire structure about creating a narrative, how to edit essays. I was able to help them do that. I was able to mentor on several other fronts also that I picked up along the way, like shortlisting schools, fine tuning goals, so on and so forth. So, one thing that I found fascinating was that I worked with most of the candidates who approached me have a job experience of 3 to 7 years, and they are, of course, brilliant at what they do, whatever field they come from. But they have some kind of an inhibition to communicate clearly and decisively to the admissions committee. Sometimes they overplay their achievements. Sometimes they are too subtle and too humble and they underplay their achievements, so much so that it takes 2 to 3 calls for me to even understand, oh, bingo, this is something great that this person has done and it needs to be portrayed in the essay. So, my job as an MBA admissions consultant eventually is to see the candidate's profile end to end and to help it blossom in an MBA application through the different formats that are available to them in the form of application essays as well as interviews, and to put their best foot forward. Now, there are two types of communication barriers that I notice among candidates who approach me. One is that they come from specific fields. For example, I have worked with young professionals from IT, finance, healthcare, and even nonprofit.
Mhm.
And they are usually, very well versed with the jargon of their industry, but they are not able to translate that jargon into simpler terms and make it more palatable for a simple, broader audience. And that is the art of storytelling. That is where it comes in, where I understand a complex idea and assimilate it as a person who doesn't know technology or who doesn't know finance, and ask them questions. So tell me, tell me simply, what does it mean? Make me understand. And in the process of making me understand, they get their aha moments that, oh, this is what I need to say in my application,
Mhm.
this is how it will appeal better. So
Mhm.
that is one aspect of communication barrier, which could be uh, talking in terms of jargon and not able to communicate outside of your domain very clearly, which is required for an MBA application. The other thing is very interesting is language barrier. There are excellent people in India, and we have beautiful languages all over the country. And there are some people who are very good at what they do. They have the fundamentals of their uh, subject in and out. But their only problem is that they are not able to express themselves in English. Now, the problem is expressing in English. Their GMAT scores and everything in theory on paper is perfect. It's very good. But a lot of us are born and brought up with humble backgrounds, and we grew up thinking and expressing ourselves in our mother tongue. And so when we are talking about situations, kal ye hua tha, aaj ye karna hai, we might not be able to articulate that well in English. So here is where, I have a soft corner for such candidates because my mother used to speak very good Gujarati. And my mother was Gujarati, but she could speak little English, little or no English. And given that, seeing her grow up, seeing her growing up and seeing her as an amazingly creative person who had so many ideas, so many things she wanted to do, but just because she couldn't speak English effectively, I felt that she couldn't market what she wanted to do. And today, there is this, they say that जो बोलता है उसको बेचता है. And very early on in my career as a communication professional, when I ventured, and I realized that these are the inequalities in the space that we function. I realized that wherever possible, whenever I could help someone who is trying to overcome such a barrier through my expertise, I will do that. And this is something that helps me, for people with a language barrier. What I do with those candidates is that we brainstorm a lot. We get on phone a lot. We talk on several things, including professional, personal, whatever the candidate is open to talking with. And through that, a rapport is built. And then the person is open to say that, oh, I have also done this. Does this count? Does this count for an application? And we build a rapport, we pick and choose stories, and we build a narrative arc of the essays together. So it's also a matter of adding perspective to the achievements, irrespective of what situations you have gone through, whether you have a technical language barrier or a community-based language barrier. For example, if a student has performed well, say has scored 740 in GMAT, and has come from a very solid, very supportive family background with no normal background. And as compared to a person who has seen so many financial troubles or
Yeah,
burdens,
yeah,
so when both have 740 GMAT and both have the similar accomplishments on their profile, on the face of it, yes, everything is competitive. But when you put their difficulties in perspective, the story becomes different. And that
yes,
is worth thinking about. That's worth
yes,
thinking about. And
yes,
many a times I have noticed that people are so humble that they don't want to relive their struggles or even talk about it. For example, after so many talks with my candidates, one person revealed after 4 calls that, ma'am, I am a first generation graduate.
yeah,
And I was so humbled that this person is now opening up to
yeah,
me. That is
yeah,
also a matter of privilege for someone to open up and be emotional or, talk things about. So there was another person, she said, ma'am, you know what, when I was growing up, I couldn't attend the arts class. Even though it was my favorite class, my parents couldn't afford stationery.
yeah,
Now, you know, and she is an amazing professional. She has worked her way up, and she deserves every chance to get into the university of her choice. And there was another student like this. There were two UPSC aspirants who really wanted, they had big goals and wanted to do something for the nation, but it didn't work out. So they
Yeah.
said, okay, let's try this field and move on to this field. So, in this context, when I'm talking about working with students with extenuating circumstances in terms of their upbringing and some problems, financial or otherwise, I was talking with one candidate, and it's a recent incident, and it tremendously moved me because I was trying to find out her extracurricular participation and community service involvement during her school or college days. And as we were discussing, I couldn't probe much. Nothing was coming out, and there was nothing much to show. Now, B schools give a lot of weightage to these factors: diversity, extracurriculars, community service, so on and so forth. And so, while building a profile for a student, these aspects become important.
Yes.
But but when I was talking to her, she stopped me midway and she said, Gauri, you know what? I was the person who was relying on used clothes and used shoes. I was the person who needed help. Where was the time for extracurricular activity?
Right.
Where was the time for community service?
Right.
So my entire energy went in education.
Yes.
And given that, how can a B school expect me to provide extracurricular achievements on my application? Isn't that unfair? And I was so stunned by her, it was
Yeah.
exceedingly well articulated argument.
Yeah.
And it was like in one question, she unearthed so many socio-economical conundrums of
Yes.
inequality in our education system here or otherwise. So these are the kind of people that I work with. There was another student, I really want to tell his story
Yeah.
because
Please.
this, I was working on a mock interview with him, and we were discussing different various interview questions possible for an MBA interview. And he was very good subject matter expertise, very informative, very confident, good body language, everything was fine. But his English, spoken English, was not up to the mark. And after the interview, when we are discussing how it went, he totally, very honestly asked me that, ma'am, my spoken English is not good, no? What should I do about it? I said, well, you are very confident. Don't be conscious about your spoken English skills. Now it is a little too late to polish them. And you are very good at what you're saying. So focus on that. And he said, ma'am, you know what? I studied entirely schooling and college, both in my own language. I started speaking in English on my own only after I started working.
Yes.
Now, this perspective, when you get from a person who is aspiring for an MBA in, say, US or Canada, is so important and it should not be missed out.
No.
So, in my understanding, I said that, what you have shared with me, you felt comfortable sharing that with me. Why don't you give a thought and consider sharing that with the admissions committee,
Yeah.
interview committee, politely at some juncture in the interview. If
Yeah.
you say need to take a pause or you need to reflect or find the right word, maybe consider saying, excuse me, I have done my entire schooling and undergraduation in another language. And that will provide a perspective to the admissions committee.
Right.
So this is essentially my job, that to make profiles stand out. And I'm not saying by talking about what struggles you have gone through, anyone wants pity. I'm not saying that you ask for sympathy in an MBA application. But what I'm saying is that your struggle has been real and there is no reason to be shy about
Yeah.
or to be modest about it.
Yeah.
And that is where I come in with, with talking with students and making them comfortable and making their story be told in a way that is very pragmatic
Yeah.
and very, to the point. I don't want my students to beg for an admission by saying things, but I want them to own their roots and be proud of their roots and their goals and speak to the admissions committee in a way they would speak to someone they respect and want to learn from.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. It's not just where you are, it's from where you came. How much is the growth in you over time? I just talked to two people in the last few days. Both are from villages, and of course, they're Hindi and Odia they studied in. And after, they are, one fellow's done his PhD. Now he's not going to be your above average PhD. But look where he came from. Is the growth, right?
Right.
And the other fellow said, "Sir, I had money troubles, this and that," but he finally made it to IIPS Mumbai, and so, and of course they gave a scholarship, so he's okay. But look at where they come from. So it's the growth, not just the level. I would say, as an economist, we are trained to look not only at the level but the growth that has brought them to this level. And if the growth is very high, even if the level is the same, then the potential of further growth is there, right? So I think that would, that's what I tell these people that listen, you can't speak English properly, or you can't do this, or you can't do that. But look at your growth.
Mhm.
You may not be the top PhD, but you are the top in the whole bloody area of your place. So it's the growth that matters. Anyways, I'm talking. You are the expert. Let me not talk. Please tell us more.
No, absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's the right word. It's all about growth. These schools want to see your growth trajectory, where you came from, where you are right now, and where you aspire to go. And everything, if it is aligned well, then it works for them to see that, okay, this is the right candidate, he will do good to the school, he or she will do justice to the program and will come up with something to meet the goals that they have identified. So growth is absolutely a very important factor that needs to be considered. And in terms of the application, they rely a lot on the GMAT score because they want to see the preparedness for academic rigor.
Right.
But beyond that, I feel that your essays and your interview are your two benchmarks and milestones with which your entire process will be largely determined. And that is completely in your hand. If you have the right guidance and if you have the right mindset, you can really put forward the best food, you know. And it's also a once in a lifetime opportunity. And uh, if I tell you, these schools come up with very very good and innovative essay prompts
Yeah.
because they want to know the person, in and out. So there is an essay which asks what matters to you the most and why, and you have to tell that in maybe 600 words. And just imagine, telling what matters to you the most in 600 words. That is such a skill set that is required. Then there is another essay which asks you if you could be some other person, if you could be an alternate
Yeah.
personality, whether from fiction or film or whatever,
Yeah.
what could that be? So
Yeah.
these are the kind of essays that make you think, and
Yeah.
it's very good to brainstorm with students on these. One of my favorite essay prompts is Duke's 25 random things about yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a very fun prompt. They specifically tell students not to talk about professional things
No.
because they say that we will get those out of your resume and other aspects
Correct.
of the
Correct.
application.
Correct. Correct.
You talk about random things about yourself and
Right.
within 750 words.
Yeah.
And when I was discussing this essay with one of my former candidates, she came up with a very interesting point. She was like, Gauri, I changed my name in kindergarten.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, why did you do that? She was like, I really liked my teacher and I wanted to be named after my teacher. So I
Yeah.
changed mine. And I was kind of bowled over because this
Yeah.
is a person who was showing confidence, determination, everything when she was maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Just imagine the kind
Yeah.
of decision-making
Yeah.
skills,
Yeah.
the leadership skills, articulation, having to convince her parents that I don't want this name, but I want this name,
Yeah.
and seeing it through at such a tender age.
Yeah.
So it's amazing what the essays can unearth out of a person's life,
Yeah.
and very very fun, very interesting to work with students on these fronts.
Wonderful.
Now, yes.
But before you tell us more about what you do, you haven't told us enough of your own journey,
Oh, my
because
my
people will like
journey.
to know, what there's so many, not so many, there's several twists and turns. So let's hear something about you so that people can identify a bit more.
Okay, so my journey has been full of twists and turns, as you have said rightly. So I was born and brought up in Ahmedabad, and I was a product of a bicultural household because my father's Maharashtrian, my mother was a Gujarati. So, and then I grew up in Ahmedabad, so I consider myself more Gujarati than Maharashtrian. Uh, I started speaking Marathi only around 10 or 12 years of age because my grandmother, my Aji, insisted that I
Yeah.
should talk in Marathi also.
Yeah.
She was afraid that her heritage would be lost if I kept continuing
Yeah.
in Gujarati. So that was my upbringing. I was very fond of animals early on as a child. I was very fond of, I had all sorts of pets that I rescued and took to the vet and then took care of. So that early interest,
By the way, before you go on, in case you know and you want to talk about it, how come your parents had this bicultural marriage? How did it take place? In case you know and you want to share, but if you don't want to, that's your choice.
of course, I'm very open to sharing it because they were very open about talking about it. So my father and my mother interestingly met for the first time in college. My father was, I think, 2 to 3 years senior to my mother, and they knew each other at that point, but they did not have any relationship, not even a friendship at that point.
In
But
Ahmedabad.
in Ahmedabad.
Right.
So,
What was he
and
doing
then,
in Ahmedabad?
so my grandfather
Yeah.
and even my great grandfather, for that matter, our family has been in Gujarat since almost 90 years.
All right.
Because my great grandfather was a government servant, he was in the railways.
Yeah.
Then my grandfather was in the government. So basically from Baroda.
Yeah. Understand.
And then after a transfer, my grandfather came to Ahmedabad in I think 1952
Okay.
or something. And then he decided to stay on in Ahmedabad.
Right.
So that is how my father was in Ahmedabad. My
Right.
father
Okay.
and
I get
my uncle speak very good Gujarati.
it. Right.
So
Obviously.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he met my then my father happened to get a job in ISRO as a
Yeah.
graphic designer.
Yeah.
And my mother also had applied and she also got the same post.
Okay.
There were two openings and both of them got that job as a graphic designer.
Yeah.
And my father clearly remembers that it was May, it was very hot, and my mother had gone to ISRO to get her, see whether she had gotten in or not. And she also saw that my father had gotten in.
Yeah.
So she thought, okay, let me tell him also if he doesn't know. So
Yeah.
she cycled all the way from Jodhpur Charasta to where my father stayed, which is almost a good 10 kilometers,
Yeah.
in the middle of the morning.
Yeah.
And she said that your mother was the first person to tell me, to give me the news that I was selected
Yes.
to work in ISRO. And they started working together, and that is how
Okay.
their romance blossomed.
Okay.
And um, they had a fairly smooth uh, interaction also with their parents. So it was
Yeah.
not, there was no opposition,
Okay.
and it worked out well.
Okay. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so then you moved out of Ahmedabad. You didn't go to Xavier's Ahmedabad, or what happened?
So I went to Xavier's Ahmedabad. I pursued my BSc zoology there
So how you come
because
zoology? You're the first person I've talked to 500 people. First person to have studied zoology. So you are one in a million, let's say. So let's hear this zoology.
so it's very funny, but it's very honest also. Like towards, say, since 14, 15 or so on,
Yeah.
I always liked animals and I was fascinated with zoos.
Yeah.
And I had researched a little about how you can work in a zoo and what is the best position to work in a zoo, which was a zoo director. So somewhere in my mind, I wanted to study BSc zoology because I wanted to pursue that career and wanted to be close to a zoo. And it was a very childlike goal, but that I pursued till I went to study zoology. But during the second year of my college, I started writing for two newspapers in Ahmedabad, and that is how I started building a portfolio. And it was then that I realized that I do write very well, and that is something that I can do for a lifetime,
Yeah.
and communication is something I can do for a lifetime.
Yeah.
So that is how I went to Pune University, and I did my mass comm and journalism there. Then I was in Calcutta for a short time. I was working with a newspaper there. And then I applied for the Fulbright scholarship, and I was selected for the scholarship. And I always wanted to go to Columbia,
Yeah.
so I went to Colombia. It was a beautiful experience. It was
Yeah.
one of the most, I would say, precious experiences
Yeah.
of my life.
Yeah. It's a nice
So,
place, and the campus is just close to Harlem, but the campus itself is very good. So you
yeah.
enjoyed it, right? And then what happened?
And then I came back. I was planning to stay in Mumbai. And I was planning to, because Mumbai is the second media hub next to Delhi. And for some reason, I didn't want to be in Delhi. I felt that it's a very unsafe place. And and I selected Mumbai. But then on LinkedIn, I found that someone had posted a job in Goa,
Yeah.
and I was very interested with this job
Yeah.
because the person who had posted it had a lot of nice things, nice positions and nice
Yeah.
profile for
Yeah.
the new entrant. So I thought I'll apply, and way back that time I applied through LinkedIn, and I got this job in Goa, and I was with them for 5, 6 months. It didn't really work out well, and but I loved Goa. In those months I just realized that, oh, this is a beautiful place to stay.
Hmm.
And so I told my father that I really like this place, and I might, like, if you suggest, I'll move back to Mumbai or any other place, but this is what I like. And he was like, if you like it, then you should be there.
Right.
So that is how the decision was made. So I have been in Goa now for almost 12 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay. So, but how do these candidates find you? Is it all online, or do they come to you?
It is mostly through LinkedIn.
Yes.
I think most of them are through LinkedIn. Then some are also through past candidates
Yeah.
who have had a good experience with me. They refer students. So I'm glad that a medium such as LinkedIn exists, and candidates can look out for people, reach out, and communicate.
Okay. Wonderful. Anything else you want to add here?
I would just like to say that all that I said about communication, it boils down to confidence and a good realistic assessment of one's strengths and weaknesses. And if one has that, then it's all good.
Okay.
You will get in and meet your goals anyhow.
All right. Okay. So shall we end it here, Gauri, or you have something else you want to say?
No, we can end it here.
All right, good. So let's end it here. Let me say bye to everybody. I'll be back with another young person or an expert. Bye till then. Bye, everybody.